Hello, this is Rafael, and welcome to How to Produce an Acoustic Uplifting Corporate Track. In the last episode, we discussed about the compositional aspects, that is, melody, harmony, and form. Today, we are going to be talking about arranging and the sample libraries I use to compose this track. In the next episode, we are going to take a look at mixing and mastering. So stay tuned. For today, let's take a listen to the last A part of this track. This is a very band-like song. So, in a traditional band, we have our keyboards, our bass, our guitars, and our percussion and drums. Here in my arrangement, you can see pink and dark pink, red and brown, the instruments that are keyboard-like, Then you have the bass in purple, guitars in blue, and percussion and drums in green. Even though we're talking about virtual instruments, we have to think of what real instruments would do in that kind of situation to make our arrangement believable. I'm not talking about solos here. Every instrument can have a moment of solo that will sometimes involve a role that they usually don't have in the band, all right? So, in this track, I have here my piano that is from the family of keyboards doing arpeggios, that is playing the different notes of the chords one after the other. Let's take a listen to the piano track. Then we have our pads, also from the keyboard family, that hold notes, But this kind of pads I have here, they also have a rhythmic interest. Let's take a listen to them. Then our strings. The string pad, also from the keyboard family, kind of instrument, holds the chords, Then our solo cello here in the first part, it does a kind of a counter melody with the glockenspiel that plays the main melody. Let's take a listen just to the counter melody it does here in the first part. Now let's take a listen to the counter melody and the melody of the first part. So, solo cello and glockenspiel. We learned how to make counter melodies, how to compose counter melodies in counterpoint. In modern counterpoint, you have to respect the harmony, but also the interaction of the two instruments or voices. Then in the second part, the solo cello and the other strings, the violins and the cellos, are doubling the main melody. Let's take a listen to this final part here. As you listened, especially in the cellos and in the solo cello, sometimes the doubling are not the exact notes. There are a few kind of changes. And there is a cool trick in arranging you can do. First of all, play again the part. That's very, very good for your MIDI programming, but also make slight changes to make it more kind of real and not kind of a mechanical music. Then the last instrument you can call keyboard-like is the harp. I'm talking about these instruments as part of the keyboard family, considering you don't have them available in your studio, because you can hire piano, you can hire strings, violins, cellos, and violas, and double basses, and harps. But in the band, usually the keyboard is taking the role of this instrument. So let's take a listen to the harp. As you noticed, it's very similar to the piano, just the rapid and high notes, not the basses. Let's take a listen to the piano and the harp together. It's very in the background, very subtle. I'm sorry. It's very subtle, and it's there kind of doubling the piano, just to give a different color, just to make the track a little bit more interesting. Then we have the basses. The basses kind of do an obvious part in the song that's hold the bass notes of the chords. It doesn't necessarily mean the root note. There's a difference between the root note and the bass note. You can have kind of inversions. Here in my track, I have two kind of figures for the bass. One is kind of holding notes. It happens here in the intro and here in the drop, and more rapid notes here in the parts, the A part and the B part. Let's take a listen to the bass in the drop and then in the B part. All right, then we have here a second bass track that's just for production purposes. It's just a sine wave holding the notes. Let's take a listen to this. If you probably don't have good speakers or headphones, good headphones, you don't even you just didn't listen to this because it's very low, and just I put it to fatten up the sound. Guitars. As I said before, if you have solos, obviously you have melody in the guitars. But here in my case is just to keep the chords flowing and give some rhythmic interest in the track. I have here acoustic and two electric guitars. Let's take a listen to them on the B part of the song. So here, as we can see, the acoustics are kind of making a pattern, a rhythm, with the chords I told you in the first episode of the series. Then we have the first electric just doing something very subtle. It's kind of a mixture of electric and acoustic, you know. It's not a very straightforward tone. The second one is a very straightforward electric tone, and it's holding the chords. Let's take a listen to it. Finally, percussion and drums. Here we have two rows or possible rows. For the percussion and drums, the unpitched, it's obviously just rhythm. But for the pitched, as I have here the glockenspiel, you can have melodies and chords. Let's take a listen just to the what we call auxiliary percussion. In my case, it's a tambourine and a shaker. All right, now the drum kit. So here you see two tracks for the drums. It's for production purposes also. I'm kind of layering the two sounds to get a better sound. It's also a very common technique nowadays in studios. Even if you record your drums, you layer some parts of it with samples, you know. And finally, the glockenspiel, as I said before, it's a tuned instrument, so you can have chords and melodies, and it's my main melody instrument in this track. Let's take a final listen to the glockenspiel. I wonder if any of you is interested in the sample libraries I used. So I'll go track by track now to tell you the sample libraries. I'll also type the website of the developer in case I forget it. All right. Piano, it's the Grandeur from Native Instruments. You can find it in the Complete 11, a very good piano sound, all right? A very, very beautiful piano sound. Just some tweaking here on the knobs, nothing very special. You can achieve this kind of sound I have in this track very easily also. Then the first pad is a pad from Zebra, all right? It's this kind of sound. The second pad is from Dark Zebra. It's this kind of sound. My string pad is also from Dark Zebra, you know. It's this kind of sound. Sometimes in this context of the band, when you use a string pad, it's better to be a kind of neutral string pad. I mean, not that kind of real string detailed sound. If you use it as a pad, you know, if you use it as strings, then you can call something like Spitfire strings or Cinematic Studio strings or whatever, you know. Then my violins are Cinematic Studio strings. As I told you before, it's a string specific part, so it's good to use a dedicated string library. I also layer it with the Cinematic Studio solo strings. That's kind of a first chair library, you know. Then you have the ensemble and the first chair library. My solo cello is Tinaguo from Cinesamples. It's a very good sounding cello. Kind of for more slow passages, you know. The legato is kind of designed for slow passages. That's why I had some issues with this track that's not that slow. I forgot to play the sound of the violins. Let's just come back a little bit. There you go. The sound of these violins are very, very good. All right. Then our cellos. This is the ensemble cellos, and also with the first chair kind of sound, you know. Let's see if there's sound. Don't forget, please, as I have other tutorials about this, either in English and in Portuguese, when you write for strings, take a look on what MIDI controller is your library kind of doing dynamics, you know. For the most part, it's the modulation wheel that you can assign to a fader, for example. But it's very important for your strings to sound real, to pay attention to this controller, all right? Sometimes we can use also expression to further mangle the sound, but you have to be very, 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 very good at handling this controller and the others too, for your strings to sound more real, all right? Harp. Harp is from the Berlin series Inspire. It's a kind of ensemble library from Orchestral Tools. Very beautiful sound. My bass is the Rickenbacker bass from Native Instruments. You can also find it in the Complete 11. I love this bass sound. As I told you before, for production purposes, I have a sine wave here, doubling the bass, not doubling, but kind of doing the main notes. And this is the default Logic sampler, the EXS24, with nothing loaded, just the sound straight out of the box. This is a trick I learned from Christian Hansen's channel, which I believe some of you are familiar with. It's a very good vlog, kind of YouTube channel. So make sure you type in the YouTube search Christian Hansen and follow his vlog also, because it has very good content, especially for those interested in film and media composition. My acoustic guitar, it's strummed acoustic from Native Instruments. You can also find it in the Complete 11 library, and it's my go-to for strummed guitars, just because if you program it, it will never sound real. It will never sound good. So here you can have lots of patterns, and you can play one note and it will play the chord and the pattern, It's not cheating. It's just if you know what you want, you can use the library just to achieve that. If there's nothing in the library that suits your composition, just pick up your favorite guitar and record it. All right. My first electric, it's kind of electric and acoustic hybrid sound, is Heaviosity Aeon. It's just doing some rapid notes in the background. All right. We will see in the mixing part that it has some effects also. My second electric is from Native Instruments also. This is the Countach Factory library, and it's the default sound for their electric guitars. It's not the best guitar sound in the world, but it, fits the track. My auxiliary percussion, the shaker and the tambourine, are EZdrummer, You can see here, this is the shaker I'm using, and this is the tambourine I'm using. All right. I like very much the interface of the library, the fact that you can search for loops, the fact that you can, use the library. It's very user friendly, as we call. But I also use it for my main drums, just because I love the way we can use this library. But for the final sound, I prefer to layer it with some other libraries. For example, the Logic Stock 1 library. The EZdrummer have a very kind of natural drum sound, not processed, The Logic one has a more processed sound. So if you layer both and you adjust the volumes accordingly to your liking, I think you can achieve a very, very good sound, Glockenspiel, let's take a listen. It's also from Berlin Spire. That's not the library I used to release the track, but I was having some issues with that library. It was also from Countach Factory library. So for this tutorial, what you've heard, it's the Glockenspiel from Berlin Spire. We forgot the sounds of the drums. I will play so you can feel how the EZdrummer sound alone is very natural, but not that punchy, Let's listen. Good sounding drums, but not that punchy. Now let's take a listen just to the Logic stock one. And then both together, I think it adds another dimension to the track. If you like this video, click on the thumbs up button, and if you are new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe so you can get a notification every time there is a new content from here. And stay tuned for the next part. We're going to be talking about mixing and a little bit of mastering. Thank you. Bye bye.